What is the rudest thing a teacher has said done to you before? Apparently I was writing wrong because I'm left-handed. Fuck you, Mrs. Riley, I'm a proud independent southpaw, and I don't need no man. Got a bad haircut highlight in 6th grade. Middle school friends kinda teased me and called me highlighter head. After I told them it bothered me, they all stopped because they were good friends. Our PE teacher heard them call me this and proceeded to make fun of my hair every time I ran by her during our warm-up laps. Pissed me off enough that I stopped warming up and started talking to my friends. She made all these excuses afterward and said that she wasn't actually saying anything bad. Man, I hated her. Edit. A word. 7th grade geography teacher taught the class literally like Professor Umbridge. She would give us a packet at the start of the class and we would have to copy it word for word into a notebook. There was no need to talk. Total insult to the intelligence of the class. She went out for one of those Teacher of the Year contests, and once the cameras were out, totally different lesson plan, we sat in a circle and analyzed the lyrics to Billy Joel's "We Didn't Start the Fire" while she was fake nice to everyone. Gross. In my junior year of high school, I had a teacher refuse to pronounce my first name correctly. My name is Alicia, pronounced Alicia. Easy, simple, fairly common name, if oddly spelled. She decided that because there's an I in my name, it should be pronounced Alicia. I'm used to people getting the spelling wrong, and I have an unusual last name that nobody can pronounce, so correcting her was easy the first time. I figure she's just accidentally mispronounced it. Nope. She fucking tells me, in front of the whole class, that obviously the way she says it is the right way, and that she will call me that going forward because clearly my parents have made a mistake in how my name is said. You know, for the last 15 years. At this point, I've gone to school in 3 different school systems in as many states. I've been in this school system longest. I have had teachers call me very rude names, literally steal my book from my locker, try to intentionally fail me because I was a tomboy, and embarrass me because I always raised my hand in class. All in this one school system. Now this bitch wants to fucking telling me how to pronounce my name during our first ever interaction. Nah, not gonna go down. If you expect me to answer to you, you're going to say my name correctly, or I won't respond. She turns her nose up at me, and things calm down. Then suddenly, she calls me by the mispronunciation. I don't bat an eyelash, because fuck this bitch. She stands up from her desk and walks toward me and calls me again. I sit there. She literally got in my face. And called my name the wrong way again. I sit there. She threatens to have me sent to the office for being disruptive. I just looked her deadass in the face and said go ahead. I'm sure when it comes out what you're doing, it'll go really well for you. She sent me to the office. They call my parents. My parents show up, throw a fit, and eventually a couple of students admit to what the teacher did. Suddenly, she started calling me by the right name. Eat shit, Mrs. Fields. Edited for errors and clarification. It didn't happen to me, but one of my teachers yelled at a girl for wearing the wrong color shoelaces because it didn't follow the dress code. A substitute PE teacher got the wrong end of the stick when a rowdy class took the piss of her. She picked the wrong person as the ringleader. She thought it was me because the class thought it would be funny to spin things in that direction. All I did was ask for clarification on a rule of a game that the class were familiar with, but the teacher was not, Australian teacher, playing rounders. The class were taking the piss of me as much as the teacher, and she missed the nuance. My head of year, also PE teacher, dragged me out of a crowded hallway into her office to tell me for 3 hours solid that I was lying about a situation where I was present and she was not. She told me that because I was a child and she was an adult that made her judgment more valid because she was older and wiser. She was 37. My mother was 45. My mother invited her to a meeting with the head of discipline, who was quite fond of me for being well-behaved and quiet, and the head teacher, I always sat at the front of his classes, we got along, and told my head of year that she was 45 years old and therefore older and wiser. The teacher that was actually involved in the incident came and apologized. She was very gracious and she and I got on after that. I was 11 and had just started secondary school. I didn't know anybody, which is only relevant as it meant I already felt incredibly shy and self-conscious. I was in a DT lesson with a teacher who was rumored to be terrifying. I needed a pair of scissors to complete whatever task we were doing. "Sir, where are the scissors to?" I asked. "You've got that horrible Bristolian accent that I hate," came his response. I was really taken aback. I managed to stammer, well, I live in Bristol, sir. So do my sons, and they don't speak like you." It all just seemed so unnecessarily nasty and humiliating. For what it's worth, I do now know it's grammatically incorrect to say "to" at the end of that sentence, and I wouldn't do so now, but it is a dialect thing. You'll hear many a Bristolian saying, "Where you to?" or "Where's that to?" instead of "Where are you?" or "Where is that?" When I was in 8th grade, I missed a few days of school and didn't do some math homework because I was at a funeral for my great-grandmother, whom I loved very dearly and was very upset about, and when I came back to school and thoroughly explained why I didn't do my homework, my algebra teacher looked me in the eyes and said, "I don't care, that's not good enough of an excuse. Karma got her back because she died of cancer by the end of the year, suck on that MRS." Hutchinson. High school business class. Typing test. Teacher gave us random books to copy text from. Typically everyone kept the book on their right side. I'm partially blind in that eye, so I moved mine to the left. Teacher knew this but repeatedly moved the book back to the right. I failed the test, got pissed as I knew I would have passed had she left my book alone. I went to the principal, explained my situation, got a retest with a different teacher, and got an A+. Fuck that bitch. In the 2 years I had him for, my GCSE computer science teacher was a complete dick to a select few in the class. His worst offense was on the last day any of us had to see his face, on clearance, which is basically when you get your teachers to sign a sheet to say that you don't owe them anything. Well, I went to get him to sign off computer science. He said we all owed him our revision guides. I told him that I vividly remember him providing the workbooks and us buying the guided, and not the other way around. I also mentioned that he didn't give us any advance warning, meaning that half of them had been burned because we all hated the subject, then asked why he even wanted them back anyway. He basically told me to STFU, so we all went to a different computer science teacher who wasn't ours and got him to sign us off instead. My first advisor in college took one look at my transcript, gave me a once-over, and told me that I'd have a hard time adjusting to college and I should expect to get B's and C's my first semester. He told me to consider dropping to 12 credits instead of taking the normal 16. For context, I came from a very rural, low-performing high school in the Midwest, but graduated HS with a 4.0. Finished my freshman year with straight A's. Suck that, Professor W. Back in first year on high school, my counseling teacher took all my classmates' cell phone and my cell phone too for some experiment. I didn't think much about it and give my phone right away. On a lunch break, all of my friends' phone has been returned to their owner except mine. I had a feeling that something is wrong and asked him, the teacher, why I haven't get my phone back. He didn't answer and told me to go back to my class. Not long after that he returned my phone. Day after that I got called to the principal office and tell me to call my parents to school. Turns out they have found my porn hentai stash from my phone, including browsing history, and managed to tell my parents about it. The story spread so quick and I got kicked out of my English and Japanese club, and now the whole school know me as the kid who hides porno on his phone. Thanks for ruining my life, counseling teacher. We had a horrid bullying history teacher when my mum went to parents' evening. As she sat down, the teacher said, "Ah yes, the delinquent's mother." I wasn't a bad child, I was just rubbish at her subject. When mum told me, I asked, "Did you tell her off?" and mum said, "No, you were right, she's really scary." I quite liked that answer as my mum used to be a teacher and never believed me when I said that teacher was horrible. I felt mum understood more, so didn't care that she hadn't stood up for me. My drama teacher called me a blonde bombshell in front of the whole class. I told him to fuck off as I stormed out of the room. I probably overreacted, but I really hated being judged because of my looks. I used to doodle around the edge of the pages on my workbook during school lessons. It helped me concentrate on listening to the teacher while keeping my hands occupied. One teacher when I was 11 stopped the entire lesson when she saw me doodling and had me cut off all the drawings on the page while the whole class watched. That shows no respect to the different learning approaches kids have. She should have just ignored me and continued the lesson instead of disrupting it for everyone. I still doodle to this day, glad I didn't let her mince it affect mine. Eighth grade teacher was convinced my parents wrote the speech I had done as a presentation in her class or that I plagiarized it. Her reasoning behind it was I was too stupid to write that. Despite absolutely no evidence of plagiarism, she decides that she's going to report it as such and I get sent to the office. They then proceed to berate me there for about 40 minutes and demand that I rewrite the entire speech if you didn't plagiarize it, so I do. It's not perfect, but really close to the original. The principal agrees that I did write the original since my second one was so incredibly close. My teacher was unconvinced for some reason, so insisted that my parents must have wrote it then, so they requested I be suspended from school. The principal of course said absolutely not, they clearly wrote this. So I leave the principal's office. Later that day I'm informed by the vice principal that I'm to receive a 3-day suspension for cheating by having my parents write my project for me. I explain to them what happened, they don't want to hear it, so I tell them to go talk to the principal instead. They do and the issue is resolved. You'd think that would be the end of it, but nope. About a week later all the other kids get their grades back for their speeches, but not me. I don't think much of it until weeks pass and still no mark. At this point I get my midterm marks, only to see that I'm failing English hard. The only projects due for this were the speech itself, which was 80% of the mark, and some random other stuff I had aced. When I then go and ask what the hell, I hear back essentially your delivery for the speech was bad, the draft you handed in was full of spelling errors and bad grammar, inconsistent information, etc., etc. To which my only response was, you mean the speech you were convinced I was too stupid to have written based on my delivery alone? To which she responds with, well, I could show you, but I must have misplaced your hard copy. Good thing it just so happens I have a spare one right here, I respond as I see her actively starting to get mad. She then proceeds to snatch the papers out of my hand and starts poring over them, trying to point out any and all problems she can find. She starts randomly circling parts of the sheet, crossing letters out, etc., etc. When she's finally done she proceeds to hand it back to me with an abysmal grade written on the top. I at this point just take the paper directly to the principal's office, who I hand it to and ask, does this seem right to you? After less than a minute of glancing at the paper he asks me to step out of his office for a moment while I hear my teacher being called to the principal's office over the PA. I see her walking up, she sees me sitting outside with a smile on my face and realized what was going on, proceeds to walk into the office, and I then overhear the principal absolutely tearing into her for a good 10+ minutes. She then leaves the office and I'm called back in. He then tells me that I'm to be exempt from her class for the remainder of the term and I will receive an automatic 90% in the class. However, I am to report to the office during the time block for that class and I'm still expected to complete all of the work, readings, etc. for that class according to the curriculum. To which I immediately agree. To this day I'm still not sure what the actual fuck my teacher's problem was with me, or why in the fuck she decided to take something so stupid so far. I was told by my math teacher in my second year of high school that I would not make VWO, the highest level of high school edu in Holland, while I got an average of 8/10 on every test. That shit hurt my self-esteem. Reading this book about slavery, underground to Canada. Teacher made us read aloud. I was 10. My turn and the N-word comes along. I kind of hesitated. She goes, you can say it. I said I didn't want to. She looked at me angrily and said, say the word. I did. 5 sentences later it comes again, and I just remember looking sadly at my teacher while I said it. Felt like a shit for the rest of the day. Drama teacher told me I'd never succeed in life because I have anxiety. There was this one science teacher that hated me. Always would move me away from my friends for talking, even if she saw that I wasn't talking. One day, we were talking. She stops, glares at us, and says, do you want to get separated? And we all said no, as you would. She said, good, it's not like anyone would want to sit next to you anyways. Right? And looked around at the rest of the class. They all nodded. I was crushed. Another teacher named Mrs. Jenkins. One of my cats had gotten hit by a car while I was at a friend's house. When I got back home, my mom broke the news. I was shattered. Took the next day off of school. When I got back, the teacher asked me why I didn't have my homework. I said I was absent. She asked why. I told her. She said she didn't care that my cat died and that the death of my pet was less important than me missing one day of school. I didn't do any work in that class the rest of the year. A teacher once called me brain-dead and said I had selective hearing because I couldn't hear her across the entire classroom. Same teacher refused to grade an essay even after I rewrote it 4 times, even after I went to the principal about it. I ended up with a 84 in her class, 1 point off of a B, because of that. TLDR. 7th grade science teacher said that no one wanted to sit next to me. Class agreed. 6th grade English teacher said my cat's death didn't matter and wasn't a valid excuse to miss a day of school and not do my homework that I never even got. 8th grade social studies teacher called me brain-dead, said I had selective hearing, and purposefully gave me a C in her class. I had a teacher throw my books off my desk one time. I just went and picked them up and acted like nothing happened. I think he hated me for falling asleep in his class. Even till this day I think me falling asleep is a medical condition. Walked into first period my senior year and went to take a seat in the back of the class. The teacher's eyes got big and said no, you're sitting up here, pointing to a seat in front of him. I had a troublemaker look that he thought would be disruptive to his class. Little did he know I was one of the smartest kids in the school and he would apologize for it at the end of the year. I told him to eat a dick. Called my parents cause I got choked and told them to punish me. My parents did cause the teacher straight lied, but not the kid who choked me. I was in an AP art class when I was a senior in high school. We'd have weekly critiques where the students would all lay our current pieces out and talk about them one at a time for improvement. It was my turn. Instead of just telling me to shade something better, the teacher grabbed a colored pencil and started drawing on my painting. My fucking acrylic painting on a canvas, which did not react well to the texture of a colored pencil. I was horrified and absolutely hated it when she was done. My classmates just stood there in just as much shock as I was. My 10th grade English teacher, a white woman, told me, a black male, that it was probably unrealistic that I'd get into college. Not only did I get accepted to each of the 10 schools I applied to, but 8 years later I graduated from her alma mater LMFAO. My time to shine. That's it, I think. Enjoy my misery. I was being beat up and a math teacher walks by. I say help whilst my shoe is being thrown down G corridor and she asks if they beat 10 cents into me. How TF she's a teacher I don't know. This one's easy. I was an overweight elementary schooler. I had my gym teacher loudly declare in front of the whole class that I could skip the jump roping exercise we were all doing because he didn't want to risk an earthquake. Dick.